I received an email from Alan, which I'm going to show you, and it's related to the Olympics. He said, David, I'd like to know why there have been no reports in the mainstream media or even on online news sources such as TYT, Tom Hartman, Secular Talk, or yourself concerning the incidents of anti-Semitic slash anti-Israeli behavior at the Olympics, such as the Lebanese team trainer refusing to allow the Israeli team on the bus, or the Egyptian judoka refusing to shake his Israeli opponent's hand after the match. The world seems to watch everything Israel does with a microscope, but turns a blind eye whenever the slights are against Israel. Well, listen, I can't speak for the other shows, right? I've had these stories bookmarked and just haven't gotten to them, but let's look at it. And you're absolutely right, Alan, that there is an obsession with Israel for many. For some, it's rooted in anti-Semitism. For others, it's rooting and pushing what they believe to be progressive ideas or something. But as I've said before, anti-Israeli bias goes way beyond what makes sense over policy disagreements, as well as anti-Semitism. And we know that anti-Semitism is way more acceptable than many other types of discrimination today in 2016. The 2016 Summer Olympics have been happening in Brazil. There's been a number of really horrible incidents. One is that Lebanese Olympians refused to travel on the same bus as the Israeli Olympians, and some were even trying to block the Israeli athletes from getting on the bus. As Israeli players tried to get on the bus, the head of the Lebanese Olympic delegation tried to block the aisle and the entrance, and eventually, to avoid an incident, another bus was sent for the Lebanese players, and the Israeli players ultimately got on the bus that they were assigned to. If your reaction when I tell you this is that, hey, people are standing up when they see injustice in Israel's policy, and that's what these actions were with regard to the bus, think about it for a second. If U.S. Olympians tried to get on a bus with Italian Olympians, and the Italians didn't want the U.S. Olympians on the bus because they're way against the drone policy of the United States, would people be supporting that, or would they say, hey, these are American athletes, they don't have anything to do with drones, you're being fools? But somehow with Israel, Lewis, it doesn't make the headlines in the same way. There's a different standard applied.
Yeah, those who are obsessed with the BDS movement don't seem to be concerned with any other country in the world that might be perpetrating some type of human rights violation.
If you ask them, they say they are
No,
concerned with that.
they're not. Of course they're not. They dedicate. Why do we never hear them talk about people who were displaced and out of their ancestral homes in China, or what's going on in North Korea, or what's going on in Sudan, or slave labor in Qatar, or you name it. The list goes on and on. These people are not trying to fight any of that. They are not speaking out about any of that. It's only Israel.
Another example is that on his way to the finals in the men's 100-kilogram plus judo weight class, Israeli judoka Or Sasson defeated an Egyptian named Islam El Shahabi. And after Sasson or Sasson defeated El Shahabi and attempted to shake hands, sportsmanship, El Shahabi refused. And here is a picture of that going on. Imagine Michael Phelps and a swimmer from Spain on the medal podium. And after the anthem is played, Michael Phelps goes to shake hands with the Spanish swimmer, and the swimmer refuses because he doesn't like American foreign policy. Who would support that? And El Shahabi was reportedly under pressure from Islamic groups and Egyptian nationalists not to even fight Or Sasson, to just back out altogether. I guess we should be glad he didn't at least do that. And then the stories continue. There was an Olympic qualifying match, and Ala Gassoun, who's a boxer from Syria, just flat out refused to fight an Israeli athlete. And Gassoun said that competing with an Israeli athlete would mean that he recognizes the state of Israel. So like I said many times, this isn't just about justice for Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. Very clearly, for some, it is that they don't even want to recognize that Israel is a country. This is a completely laughable position in 2016. Another judo fighter reportedly forfeited a match also so as not to face an Israeli athlete. Unfortunately, these stories haven't actually made much news. There is one story related to Israel and the Olympics that I've seen among the so-called left. And it's a story about how Palestinian swimmer Marie Al-Atrash supposedly had no way of training in an Olympic-sized pool. because as the story goes, there are none in the Palestinian territories, and she just can't get a pool to practice in. Imagine the confusion when I looked into this, and it turns out that the story is not even true. Israeli officials made it clear that, first of all, Mary al-Atrash never even requested a permit to train in Jerusalem, which would have been granted, and she would have been able to train in Jerusalem. And it's also been pointed out that there are several Olympic-sized pools in the Palestinian territories. And it is so disappointing, Lewis, when the insane anti-Israeli bias that some call anti-Semitism in these particular cases is basically ignored, but a non-story crafted merely for PR value that is demonstrably false is the one story that makes it into media, more broadly speaking. It's pretty disappointing.
That's just it. This is a microcosm of the whole thing, because everyone who is so crazy with this BDS stuff and the Israel stuff, they are victims of what might be one of the world's best propaganda movements and propaganda machines. Not to say that Israel has done nothing wrong. Believe me, there's plenty of stuff we can point out.
Of course.
But still, there is this gigantic propaganda machine around the whole Israel-Palestine conflict. And that's why none of these people care about anything else that's happening in the world. They are only focused on Israel.